Let's get cracking. First of all, class today is and learning is dedicated speaking for Hashem for I'm Rafael ben Frida, and as well for Gabriel Hananya Haim ben Masuda. And continued health of Chana Batzim Fega. Okay, let's go. So we are on Daf Dalid Amud Bet. Okay, and Tinok ben Gabriela.
Where are we?
Ruth Bat Magalit Chana. Dalid Amud Bet. Okay. Ve'en right in the middle. Ve'en osin ugiot lagefanim. So we explained already that ugiot in the Mishnah. We explained that ugiot means right over here. Ugiot means that you don't make ditches for gefanim for the vines. Okay, you can't dig ditches around the vines, around the roots of the vines. Now the Gemara, we already know what ugiot are, but the reason why we know what ugiot are is because we looked ahead in the Gemara, so we know what it is. Or Rashi told us what it is because he looked ahead in the Gemara. But someone looked ahead. That's the point. So ugiot normally means cookies.
Right.
So right.
Or matzah.
Or matzah, excellent. Right. Or a circle. Right. Choni ha'me'agal. He was ag uga. Okay. So the reason is that, but uga means he dug it into the ground. So as he made the circle, there was a little bit of digging, even with his finger. Right. That's the story where he said, I'm not leaving until you bring us rain. Okay? Either way. You don't make ugiot, you don't make ditches around the vines, the grapevines. Gemara says, my ugiot, what are these ugiot? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, binki. It's talking about ditches where you're digging a hole around it. Gemara says, okay, remember, now at this point we did not yet know what ugiot meant. The Gemara is telling you an answer, it means binki.
But we did this before,
I said that they looked at her head, that's my point. No, this. 1 second. Let's start again. No, let's go back. The Mishnah says erosim ugiot, right? That's what we're referring to here. So we're going back to that Mishnah. Yeah. Now the Gemara is saying on it, what's ugiot? So we had the art scroll, we have Rashi, we have Rabbi Fahi. So we all told you. I told you what it means. But how did I know? Because this Gemara. Gemara says, what's ugiot? Gemara answers binki. It means ditches. Ask the Gemara, 1 second. How could it be? Because at this point, we're not convinced that is the definition. Ask the Gemara, let's bring a proof that this is the case, that's what it means. We have a Braita. The Braita says, Eluhen ugiot. These are the ugiot. B'didin she'bi'ikare zetin u'bi'ikare gefanim. What are these ugiot? Eluhen, these are they. The ditches around the olive trees, the zetim, around the roots of the olives and the roots of the grapes. The Gemara says, how could that be? Don't we know that Amat Rabbi Yehuda Shada Libnei Bartzitai, either the people of a certain town or the people of a certain family, right? Depends on which nusach you follow. He told the people of Bartzitai, Lime'abad Binki Likarmehon, that they should make binki ditches for karmehon. What was he talking about? He was talking about on Chol HaMoed. And what did we just say in the Mishnah? En osin ugiot. You can't make ditches on Chol HaMoed. Here you're saying he told them to. Gemara says you're right. He did tell them to. Lo kasha. But it's not difficult to understand. Why? Ha bechadeti. The Mishnah told you can't dig. That was new ditches. Starting from the beginning to dig it out from the ground. It's very heavy work. But Ba'atiki, Rabbi Yehuda was telling the Bnei Bartzitai, he was telling them if they had ditches already dug, but they got filled in with leaves or dirt or whatever, with a little effort, just no effort almost, they're able to clean it out. So that he allowed them to do.
What's the concept here? What are we discussing?
We're discussing the idea of digging out a ditch on Chol HaMoed. The Mishnah said it's asur.
Specifically for grape
watering,
for vineyards, for different types of irrigation. But the Gemara said you can't dig ditches. Now we know it means ditches from there. But what do you mean? Don't we know that he allowed them to dig ditches? The Mishnah over here is telling me did it. So if ugiot does not mean ditches, not a problem. But now you just told me ugiot means ditches. I thought I remembered Rabbi Yehuda said digging ditches was mutar. The Gemara answers one kind of one is new, one is old. The new ones is the Mishnah, which says that it's not allowed. The old ones, Rabbi Yehuda, which says it's allowed because it's not a lot of effort.
But didn't we say the root?
Go ahead.
Yeah, didn't we say the roots?
Huh?
You can make a thing as long as you don't go down to the roots. Remember we said that's digging more. That's effort. That's deep.
That was we were just talking about uncovering them or putting dust on them, right?
Yeah,
Remember that was to cover the cracks, right? But that was putting dust on them. This is talking about literally digging an irrigation ditch. It's much deeper. It's much more work. Okay?
Everything we studied the last 2 times was about effort versus no effort.
Yeah.
And this is in keeping with that.
Correct.
Because we're going back.
Because again, back and forth, we keep going back to this idea. It needs to be no profit, and it's about loss versus profit, and excessive versus non-excessive work. So far, the Gemara continues. The Mishnah continues. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer, and osin et ha'ama. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, you're not allowed to dig the ama, which is basically not even on the by the other one. You're digging the ditch around the tree, around the vineyard. So that's something which is much more directly related to the actual fruit, to the planting, to whatever it might be. Here, what we're talking about is the guy is digging basically like a mini canal, like the one that America dug for Panama. Which, right. But this is one ama wide by one ama deep. So it's deep in R for a home garden. But when you're watering a huge field, if you're a farmer, that's nothing. Okay? So either way, the Gemara said, Rabbi Elazar explains, Ben Azariah, you can't make amma, which means to dig amma wide, amma deep, that's already too much. Okay? That's what the Gemara says. One amma cubed. Okay? Says the square amma. Says the Gemara, Bishlama Moed, hold on. If you're talking about Moed, you're talking about Chol Moed, fine. We already asked this question in the Mishnah, and I already told you this Gemara. When it comes to Moed Chol Moed, I understand it's a lot of work to dig a ditch like that. By the way, I have to tell you, I don't know if you guys have you guys ever dug in a garden or planted anything? Yeah. It is much more work than you think it is. Yeah, when you just have to dig out a plant and you think, oh, I'm just going to dig out the thing, then you stick it in, it sticks out the top. Then you dig deeper, it still sticks out the top. Then you have to put the thing. By the time you finish, you're sweating, you have dirt all over your hands and your clothing. So digging anything serious is not easy. Something which is amma by amma and the length of the field is a tremendous amount of work. Okay, says the Gemara. When it comes to the holiday, you're not allowed to do so because it's a lot of exertion. But when it comes to the shemitah, my ta'ama, what's the reason? Shemitah, what did we say you're not allowed to do? We said you're not allowed to plant, you're not allowed to harvest, you're not allowed to prune, all those things. But those are directly associated with the tree, with the grain, with the vines, whatever it might be. Here, I'm just digging a ditch along the edge of the field, and there's going to be water in it. What should be the problem with that? It's not tircha, and shmita, there's no isur of tircha. So shibi'it, what's the problem? Included in the Gemara's question is the understanding that on shmita, we never forbid you from doing exertive work. We forbid you from doing tree work, vine work, grain work, directly associated. So the question is,
Why is that? Sorry.
You can dig a canal as long as it's from someplace to someplace else, but it's not circumscribing a field.
Yeah. So there's no issue to do construction on Shemitah.
Why is
Right?
that? Because it has to do with direct profit.
Shemitah, the Torah said you have to let your fields lie fallow.
That's it.
Right?
Okay,
but that's about the field and the fruits and the vegetables and whatever. Yeah, I'm leading it to the item. What's the problem? Gemara says, Pliguba Rabbi Zera Rabbi Abba Bamamal. Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Abba Bamamal disagree as to why it's forbidden to dig this ditch on Shemitah. Okay, on the holiday we understand it's a lot of exertion. On Shemitah, what's the reason? Chadama, one of the two. Anytime you see that, it means that we don't know which one said what. Okay, if we did, it would say Rabbi Zera said this, Rabbi Abba Bar Mamal said that. Chadama, one said because it looks like you're hoeing. What am I doing? As I'm digging this ditch, I'm going in the ground. What does it look like I'm doing?
So
I'm turning over the earth. So since it looks like the same thing I would do to be able to plant, that's asur.
Why?
Because
Why we give too much on appearance. Who
Sorry?
cares? You care that it's meaning we care too much about appearance.
So the halacha is that we don't care so much about appearance, but we care about people.
Because it's not a thing that's illegal.
We care about a person assuming that this is mutar. That's what the problem is when someone sees marit ayin. I watch you do something. I see you eat a McDonald's burger.
That's not,
okay?
But that's a known thing that's no good.
What is? So here too, that's the point. Hoeing, remember, for us, we don't know. But imagine everybody was a farmer. Everyone had a field. Everyone knew that you can't hoe on Shemitah. Then they see you sitting there in the earth. It looks like, what are you doing? It looks like you're hoeing. Okay? It looks like you're turning over the earth, which is what? Whenever they turned over the earth, what was the point? It made the earth softer, and then once the earth was softer, you'd be able to plant in it. So to any passersby, it looks like the person is preparing the earth for planting, okay? Which is what hoeing is, okay?
Let's say I had shrubbery around, nobody could see my property.
Once something is asur for marit ayin, it's asur anywhere. Okay? Now, listen to this. The Gemara is going to give us cases where we're not worried about it. Okay? Let's see the first case. The first opinion says, Ne'aki oder. It looks like you're hoeing the ground, and that's to prepare for planting or helping the crops. And one says, this is fascinating. What are you doing? You're digging a little canal. So you're digging the earth, and where are you putting it? On the sides. Okay? Now that earth is earth which is soft and loose, right? Because you've dug it out of the ground. When you put that now on the banks of the entire, all of that of the entire canal, all of that pile, what looks like a aruga is what they would call it. Okay, that whole furrow, you could plant in.
It's like a mound?
It looks like a mound along the outside of the canal.
You would plant into the mound?
You plant into the mound because the mound itself is now loosened and soft. So even though the canal itself, it's not my intention, but when I do that, by definition, that's what happens. So it's very important because you might think, 1 second, don't I have to? Yes, intention is important. But you know when we say intention is not as important? Intention is not as important when what you're doing has no shot of not being that thing. I'll give you an example. Let's say I take a knife on Shabbat. I want a nice chicken dinner. I slaughter the chicken. I was like, listen, I'm not killing the chicken. I'm just cutting his throat. I'm not killing the chicken. All I'm doing, I'm just moving the knife like this. Happens to be the chicken's right there. That logic doesn't hold water. That's literally psik resha. Psik resha means I'm not killing the chicken. I'm just taking his head off. Yeah, but psik resha, you take off the chicken head. Velo yamut, is he not going to die? Anytime you have something called psik resha, the action and the outcome are inextricable one from the other. Can I give you an example?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say I have a marble table. This is the example Gemara gives. Weighs 700 pounds. I'm dragging it across my backyard, the grass. What am I going to say? Well, I have no intention of ripping up all the grass, destroying the backyard. I have no intention of doing that. Yeah, but moron, it's a 600-pound table. There's no way that's not going to happen. Compare that now. Instead, I take one of those little, vinyl. I don't know what's the material on a beach chair. Nylon. I take a 6-pound nylon beach chair and I pull it on the grass. Is it absolutely necessary, 1,000% inescapable that it's going to pull up the earth? No. So therefore, anytime there's no way of escaping the outcome, because 1,000% that's what's going to happen, you can't say, well, I didn't intend to do that. By definition, that outcome is going to produce that, which means that is also included in your intention. You also intended to kill the chicken if you only wanted to remove its head. By the way, Morris, tell us, I bet you in liberal New York, they're now using that logic to free murderers in the subway station, right? I did not mean to kill the G. I only lit her on fire. I was cold. What do you want from me? She was the only flammable thing.
She should have dropped
right?
the rope.
The craziness that goes on right now. Hazit Morris had to leave. You don't want to get caught up in that. I want no part of this. Okay, yeah. So you understand? You get me? Right? Anytime there's inescapable, by definition, that's also part of your intention. Okay? Now, says the Gemara. So therefore, when I dig up the canal and I'm putting all this loose earth, now I have prepared earth for planting. Whether that's my intention or not, It is given to my intention. It is made to be my intention by the fact that it's inescapable. Okay, so we have two reasons.
Therefore, that would not be allowed.
Both reasons are reasons why it's not allowed. Either the reason is because anyone looking thinks...
About Holomoed.
Talking about Shemitah. On Chol Moed, it's just work, it's exertion. Okay. I don't need a reason. On Shemitah, the problem is it looks like you're hoeing, or you prepared the earth for planting. Okay, so two reasons why it would be forbidden to dig the canal on Shemitah. Unless you put
it into your dump truck as it goes along.
Oh, very good. So he's jumping the dump truck. Let's go. Says the Gemara. He never jumped a dump truck in his life. What's the difference between these two opinions? Ika binayu, the Gemara says, every time we find two different opinions, the Gemara tries to find out, so not just what's the difference in the two logics. What's the halachic difference? In other words, is there a case which would showcase that according to one opinion it will be allowed, and according to another opinion it would not be allowed? That's a mai binayu, or a nafkamina. Okay? Those two things, those two words mean the same thing. Mai binayu means what's the difference between them? Nafkamina means it turns out from this. Okay, that one is allowed, one's not. Ika binayu, says the Gemara, the difference between them would be the ka'atu maya batre, in a scenario where the canal is attached to a spring or to a river. So the minute I'm digging the canal, what happens? The water's rushing right behind me. So every move I make with the shovel, what happens? The water rushes in, okay, into the spot that I just emptied. All right. Since that's the case, says the Gemara, the one that says you're preparing the earth for planting, every time he takes a scoop full of earth out, puts it out on the canal side, he has plantable earth. So that would still be forbidden. But according to the other opinion, that it looks like you're hoeing and you're preparing the ground, you're da-da-da-da, no, it doesn't. Everyone could see immediately that the guy is digging a canal. There's water.
So the Maharat Ayin doesn't hold because the spring is immediately backfilling.
It's not just that the Maharat Ayin doesn't hold, is that there's no Maharat Ayin at all. The whole thing is that this is what you're doing. But if it's clear that that's not what you're doing, then no one thinks that. It's kind of like I walked into McDonald's, but in the McDonald's store, there's a giant sign that says, this McDonald's has kosher section and non-kosher section. I don't have to come up, get my thumbs out and say, why is it allowed? It says on the sign. The same guy that you're worried about that's going to think I'm doing the wrong thing, there's a sign. It says I'm doing the right thing. Okay? Says the Gemara. So according to the opinion that the problem is the prepared earth, you still have the prepared earth on the riverbank, on the canal bank. Yeah. But according to the Ma'ika, it's still there. The person that says it looks like you're hoeing, there's no reason. Everyone can see that there's water. The Gemara says, hold up. We did very similar to this in the last Gemara. Not this idea, but this structural thing. We just gave you two reasons, and we gave you a difference between the two opinions. The Gemara is trying to figure out, I don't understand. Don't you agree to what he's saying? And then conversely, don't you agree to what he's saying? Like, doesn't it actually look like hoeing? And doesn't it actually consist of creating? So why is this a problem, not that a problem? What? I don't understand. Why is this not obvious that both reasons are problems? You get it? Why should they be mutually exclusive?
Right. Why are you trying to separate them?
Yeah. You gave me one reason, he gave the other reason. But if I got rid of your reason, well, you don't agree with his reason? There's nothing wrong with his reason. So you should still hold, even in a scenario where your logic is no longer there. Don't you agree that his logic is still there? And that's also a good enough reason to say Asur? So the Gemara is going to try and figure that out. Says the Gemara, the guy that says that it's because of hoeing, and therefore he says it's mutar because everyone could see you're not hoeing because there's water. Why is he not worried that you dug out ground and now you have plantable ground? On Shemitah, Asur. The Gemara seems to accept that, doesn't challenge it back, meaning that there's no difference in halakha because the opinion that says that would also agree that the other problem is also still a problem. Okay? Now the Gemara says
quick question.
Yeah.
You want to build a house during Shemitah.
Okay.
And you have to dig out the foundation and you're putting all this prepared earth, loosened earth to the side of your house. Why doesn't everybody walk by and say, oh, it looks like even though he's building a house, he's got all this softened earth
not in the field.
According to where we are thus far, maybe that is the case. Who said it isn't? You're asking based on the fact that it's not a problem. What?
It wouldn't be assumed that he's in the field.
Is it in earth? Isn't all earth field?
No.
All earth is potential
Not
field.
there.
No, you have a garden at home. You might have
No, but
two
you said you're
tomatoes.
doing. No, but you said you're doing a
I'm building
foundation of a house. Nobody's going to assume you're planting trees next to the.
No, but again, he's not talking about the digging here. As I take out every scoopful of earth, all the earth on the outside now is plantable earth. That's what he's asking.
Well, that's not the intention.
But we said it's automatic intention.
No, but it's not because it's not connected.
It's the same as the canal. Now, Joe, but he's saying a chidush. He's trying to say, no. He's trying to say that the only time we said that's asur is in the context of a field.
Yes.
Maybe. I don't know. But that's a chidush. You see why it's a chidush? Because who made that rule? Is that something? We have to get a source for that.
Can I ask you
Okay?
a little bit of a more entry-level question?
Yeah.
Where does this concept come from?
Which concept?
The one we're learning now.
Which part of it? I need to know what you mean.
So basically,
That shemitah,
No.
you're not allowed to dig.
it's kind of like Moed Kattan, you know, like
Yeah.
on Hol HaMoed, people are the rabbis are gathering and saying what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed
So
to do.
Joe asks me this question every time we learn. How do we get sidetracked by the shemitah again? You know what the answer is? Because the Mishnah, right on the first page.
Okay, so it's from the Mishnah, and the
Yeah.
Mishnah is an
It
earlier
connected
book.
the Shemitah
Yeah.
with the Moed,
Right?
though.
Yeah.
So my question is as follows. So in the time, this was relevant, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that, let's say we wanted to get more of a gathering, right? Again, entry level, complete sidetrack. You want to relate to these times. Can you get the Chachamim to discuss these concepts now and put together books?
I don't have a son Hazim.
Yeah, no, of course. And they exist.
They exist.
Yeah, books like that exist.
So kind of you can take
If
these
we want to
concepts
if we
and
want to go
modernize.
if we want to go right over there, right? You see that right there?
Right.
You see over there?
Yeah.
That whole shelf of books.
Uh-huh.
One of those books is all about the mitzvot tiluyot ba'aretz. All the mitzvot that are relevant in Eretz Israel. One of the subjects today.
Yeah, today.
One of the subjects Chamavadia talks about over there is what are the laws of Shemitah today?
Got it.
And that will include all of the practical
Very interesting.
cases. And by the way, he'll stay further away from springs and whatever. But this is the source.
Got it. Because it's
Okay.
very hard to relate to.
Very hard. But what you're trying to really understand, remember, don't think source, spring.
Don't over-relate.
Don't think field. Think excessive exertion. Don't think loss of crops. Think loss in my business versus profit. Am I allowed to keep my business open on Chol HaMoed? Well, what's going on? Am I losing profit?
So
Or
does
am I suffering a loss
does that mean I'm
by
not
not being
allowed to
open?
underwrite new deals, or am I not allowed to sign contracts?
All
What's the base?
part of the question. Good.
New is the key word there.
All part. No, leave it for now. All part of the same question, but we're learning the origin source to understand how we would rule on that halachically. You see? So each time the Gemara gives a thing. And by the way, where do you think a halakha process comes from? They then now have to say, okay, what's a contract? Is a contract like an irrigated field or like an unirrigated field? Remember, irrigated field is a code word. It's a code word for loss. Rainwater field is a code word. It's a code word for profit. Because adding water to a field that gets enough of its own rainwater is only improving that field. So what they were giving you is the basis, the building blocks for the halakha. But we're starting in the ground floor, so we have it legit. Okay?
Ray, there are people who have e-commerce businesses
Yes.
who accept the order. They may even ship the order and charge it
Careful,
until after.
careful. We don't want to get the rule on halachot here.
It's
I'm not
interesting.
asking-
No, it's very
It's
interesting.
very
I'm
interesting.
not ruling, but there are present days
Yeah.
examples that
We're-
have nothing to do with farming.
We are not yet in the place where we could rule on anything.
Can we
yet.
start doing that? Maybe
What?
add into a little bit of modern elements
You'd
into
have,
our learning?
you'd have to get to the
Wednesday
point.
nights and Tuesday morning.
This accidental planting and in this unintentional, how come right now it's not being compared to sort of Shabbat, where you can't even accidentally step on the ground if you inadvertently plant something, or in the appearance of cooking and the knobs removing or not or covering? How come this it seems like it's being considered, whereas that's not?
It's a good question. By the way, I have no idea what accidental planting is. Like, what you walking with a thing and then you fall into a hole and then you get up but you leave it there? What does accidental planting mean?
They always say walk on dirt in the ground, you might plant, a seed into the ground with your shoes by walking.
No problem. There's no problem. And no one holds you can't walk on dirt on Shabbat. No one. If you're wearing high heels and you're walking on grass and you're literally hoeing the ground with the thing every time, then that's something else. But just to walk, walking on the grass, no problem. No problem. Okay, so let's move on. But yes, these questions would also be relevant to Shabbat as well, with their own laws. But on Shabbat, there's different, you're worried about, not all the things that we're worried about are the same. Says the Gemara, Ela ika beinayu. So since we just said that the guy who talks about looks like hoeing is this also agrees to the prepares planting guy, so then that's not a difference. Even if the water comes straight in and the hoeing reason is not there, he also agrees to the prepares planting, which means that it would not be a difference between them. They both would still hold, it's asur. Says the Gemara, Ela ika beinayu. So what would the difference be between them? Tekashakil mineh v'shadeh labrai. So what did you say earlier? You're putting in a dump truck. This is the Gemara's version of your dump truck. What happens if I dig, but instead of going like this, dig, turn over on the side, I dig. You ever see how people throw the thing? Mm-hmm. Now the dirt, where'd it go? Everywhere. You can't plant in that little dirt. Mm-hmm. So therefore, even though the earth is softened, but it's not possible to plant it.
Not considered plantable.
Yeah? So since it's not considered plantable, so you don't have the reason of prepared for planting. So if the guy is vishadi librai, he throws it away, or he takes it to a far away place, so it's not gathering. So if someone does that, there's no plantable earth here. The opinion that says that it looks like hoeing, you still have it. Who cares about where you put it? What you're doing is you're digging into and softening up the earth. Ika. The Gemara says, but Mr. Planting guy, don't you also agree to Mr. Hoeing guy? Both reasons are valid. So you're going to say it's mutar here because it's scattered, but meanwhile, don't you still have the problem of the hoeing? The Gemara says.
The spring.
Sorry?
You have the fed
so
spring.
no, now we're talking about a different case. In other words,
wouldn't that now permit by both?
We may get there, but in this case, we're not yet talking about the spring. The guy who says preparing for planting, doesn't he also agree? Doesn't he also worried about the oder guy? The Gemara answers, what?
Right. Soft soil.
The Gemara answers, no. Why? Oder nami ki kashakil beduchte manachle. No. When you're hoeing in the earth, what do? You turn the earth over in its immediate vicinity. No one ever, when they're hoeing the ground, takes the earth, moves it over there, or chucks it somewhere else. Because the whole point of threshing is to leave it there. Okay? So if you're hoeing, so if I'm going to throw it somewhere else, or ship it, put it in a barrel, it's not the same object. So in that case, there would be no worry about hoeing, but there would be a worry about agape. Okay, now the Gemara is going to give us something a little bit different, and it's important that you pay attention because we want to make sure that no one gets lost. What does our Mishnah say? Let's go back to our Mishnah on page 2. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, right? What does he say? En osin et ha'ama b'techila b'moed u'b'shvi'it. You cannot make b'techila a new canal in Moed, in the holiday, Chol Moed, Ubashivit, and on Shemitah. That's why we're in the Shemitah business, because the Mishnah decided to put them together because for a lot of the cases they're synonymous. So instead of having you learn another whole Masechet on Shvi'it with all the same halachot, so we put them together.
Used in the Moed, the examples they use in the Moed are all the Shemitah items.
Yeah, it's a complete overlap.
They happen to use the water, the canal, the planting. It's a Shemitah.
It's exactly Shemitah.
They used a different thing. Maybe it wouldn't be Shemitah.
And there would be no purpose. You're going to make two. Imagine having this exact same Mishnah in the Shemitah book. And then you have to learn that again. It's the same thing. Like, leave me alone. Just tell me where they're different. And that's what the Gemara is doing. Okay? So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, you want to dig a new ditch, a new canal, okay? You can't do it on Chol Moed and you can't do it on Shvi'it. However, we now are going to bring another approach, another recitation of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, which is going to be a little bit different. Amemar matnila mepnei shenir'a ke'oder. Amemar had a version of this Mishnah, so he had a scrap of paper, Yani, or he was taught the Mishnah, that the wording included in Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was not just, you're not allowed to do this on Chol Moed and on Shemitah. And then we had a Gemara that comes and says, why? Two rabbis tell you, no, hoeing, no, planting. It looks like you're preparing the earth for planting. He had, in his version of the Mishnah, mipnei shenir'a ke'oder, because it looks like hoeing. He had it in the Mishnah. So it was much more direct that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah himself was saying that was his reasoning. If that's the case, we have a question of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah on Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Umi amar Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah kol shenir'a ke'oder asur? 1 second. You want to tell me that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah himself said that the problem is that it's nir'a ke'oder, that when you dig something, it looks like you're hoeing? That can't be. Why? Umi amar, did he say anything that looks like hoeing? Asur veramini. Let me ask you a question from the Mishnah. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah has another Mishnah, and let's see what he says. Oseh adam et zivlo otzar. A person is allowed to take, let's say they used to use fertilizer. They would gather the dung of the animals, the wasted animals, and they would sprinkle it everywhere. Why does that help? Because the fertilizer, the dung of the animal has nutrients and minerals in it that will help the earth grow better. Okay? All right. So, says the Gemara, a person's allowed to make zivlo otzar. Otzar literally means a storehouse. Okay? But over here it means he's allowed to pile, to gather the fertilizer when he's on in the field during Shemitah. Rabbi Meir says, unless he digs a hole of 3 tefachim. How much is a tefach? A tefach is the size of a fist, but they say with a little thumb up. So it's like a Gemara fist. Okay? Now, says the Gemara.
You're saying this is permitted both in Shemitah and in Moed?
What do you mean?
I'm asking. Are you permitted to gather dung in these two cases?
I don't think that there's any difference. Yeah, but this case is talking about Shvi'it.
But you're allowed to gather dung.
I would not have imagined there would be a problem on Chol Moed because it's not excessive work.
Not excessive work, but it is somewhat preparatory to field preparation.
Yeah, but that's not a problem on Chol Moed.
Right. On
Shvi'it, the Gemara is wondering whether this is part of it. So we're going to see. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir says, you're not allowed to do it unless until you dig a hole that's 3 tefachim deep into the ground, or or unless it's 3 tefachim above the ground, either above or below 3 tefachim. Hayalo davar muat. Let's say at a small amount. Okay, mosif ala veholech. He's allowed to add to the smaller amount. Okay, even though he does not have the 3 down or the 3 up to distinguish it from being on the ground, okay? He doesn't have it up or down. If it's a small amount, which we did not say was asur, you're still allowed to add to it because it's like you already have a base that was mutar, so therefore you could add more to it. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah oser. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, even if you had a little bit of dung on the ground from before Shemitah, you're still not allowed to do it. Ad sheya'amik shilosha or ad sheyagbia shilosha. Until you go down 3 or you come up 3. Or ad sheyiten ala sela. Or until you put it on top of a rock. Now, says the Gemara, 1 second.
So up to that amount you're allowed.
Sorry?
So up to the 3 you're allowed.
So
when you get to the 3 that you're not allowed.
No. In other words, the pile needs to be in a hole which is 3 tefachim deep, or on top of something which is 3 tefachim higher than the earth. But either way, it's clear to any observer that this is not, you're not trying to put dung on the earth to fertilize the ground on Shemitah. Why? Because if you would, you wouldn't have dug it out.
Or 3 tefach high pile of dung.
No.
It's a 3 tefach high mound that you're putting something on top
You're
of.
putting the
Or
dung, a ditch. Exactly.
Hole that you're dropping it into.
Exactly. So when you want to make a pile of the dung, you can't. Anyone's going to think you're trying to fertilize the ground on Shemitah to help the things grow. You're not allowed to do that. So what's the answer? Says Rabbi Meir. Oh no problem. I got to answer. Dig 3 tefachim deep. Everyone knows you don't. No one buries fertilizer. See, that's not what you're doing. Or if you dig it up, or if you pile it high, no one's putting fertilizer 3 tefachim above the level of their ground. So the 3 tefachim allow us to see that that's not what's going on. Okay. Says Rabbi Meir, hold up. Oh wait, let me finish the line. Says Rabbi Meir, but if there's already some there, dung, that you were allowed to have there because it was already from before, I can now put this dung on top of dung that's already there. Okay? Says Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, you're not allowed to. You have to have to dig the 3 or pile up the 3. Now, hold on. None of this is relevant to us, so we don't have to get our feet into the dung. The only part of this is irrelevant to us is, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, you just told me that if I want to do this on Shemitah, what do I need to do? I need to dig 3 tefachim in the earth. That means that you hold, on Shemitah, I'm allowed to dig. But I thought that you just told me in the other Mishnah that when you dig, it looks like you're hoeing.
Yeah.
You see? So sometimes the Gemara is going to bring you a whole Mishnah. We could get caught up in an ask 94 questions and go through the whole thing. Or we could just take the part that we needed and say, look, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah tells you that you're not allowed to dig. Okay? Is that clear so far? Okay.
And
so
when he digs a 3 tefach hole, he's going to have a 3 tefach mound next to it.
yes. So it's a problem for the other reasoning. Okay, good. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Abba bar Mamel. Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Abba bar Mamel, both of them have an answer to this problem, and both of them disagree. Same 2 rabbis, okay? Chad Amar, one of them says, Kegon shehe'emik, one of them says, right, that it's not talking about when he's digging. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah didn't say dig. He said you're not allowed unless it was in a dug out spot. So we're not talking about you digging. It's pre-dug.
He didn't say that though.
No, but the point is, you're asking me a question saying, oh, he said you could dig. He never said you could dig.
Yeah,
he just,
what did he say then?
He said, let's go back, okay? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, he says, it's asur. Ad sheyamik, okay? Unless you lowered the space where you're dumping it into, 3 tefachim.
Okay.
But when did I do that? I could have done that previously on Shemitah, right? I could have done that before. I could have done that before, right?
The prequel.
You hire a gardener to do all this.
Okay? So the Gemara says...
By the way, it has nothing to do, but during Shemitah, if you do this fertilizer item,
yeah,
you're not planting, you're working a little.
priming the earth for planting or making the earth more fertile for planting is also asur. Because remember, we don't want you doing this. So therefore we said all these things on the way are problematic. But you're probably right, like you said earlier, we're not going to give you lashes for this.
Right.
Because this is not planting. Right. And this is not pruning. Right. It's not the item itself. No. But what did we say? We said, Sadecha lo. Remember that? Right. You field? No. What's your question? The rabbi, I have a question about the field. No. What's the question about the vineyard? No. Sadecha lo. Right. So
it could lead to mixed answers.
It could lead.
No lashable. It's not lashable.
I don't know if you guys heard that. That was the best one. Nathan said it could lead to mixed dancing. Okay. By the way, that's always a problem when you have piles of dung. It's a very common issue. When the guy slips, the girl slips, all of a sudden they're in the middle of a tango. Okay.
Square dance.
One of them says, you did it already earlier, so there's no proof here. No. You know why? When the guy is digging, okay, so as he's digging the hole, he's immediately placing the dung that he has. The only reason was he's digging is in order to put this in. So even though in the 2 seconds or 3 minutes he's digging, it's not what's it called? It's not obvious. It's not evident that that's coming. But the time frame is close enough that anyone that saw one is going to see the other, and your intention will be made absolutely clear that you would think, because exactly.
Am I allowed to like one answer over the other?
Yes,
I don't like that answer.
You like the first one.
There's always a guy that comes that next page. Everything's a waste of time. This is a new rule. We're doing this. Forget all
Okay,
these guys.
so hold on one second. So that's the first way of understanding. That's some rabbi comes riding into the Beit Midrash, driving a Zamboni. He flattens everybody. Okay, now listen to this. Hold on. Stana. Ready? This is great. You ready for this one?
He's coming any minute.
I just gave you the first way of understanding this opinion. The first way is, while I'm digging, obviously it might look like I'm hoeing, but at the same time, since immediately afterwards I'm putting the dung in, so you know what? It becomes clear. The obvious problem you're worried is like, yeah, but while you're digging, it looks bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Another way of understanding is it doesn't mean when it says zivlo mochiach alav, doesn't mean that when you put it in mochiach alav. It means the guy has a giant pile of dung sitting there,
Ready.
and he's digging right next to it. What's he doing?
Preparing.
He's preparing, but he's preparing for that. So the second way of understanding is much better, because that's almost identical to the immediate water. Right? You get that? You like that answer better? The pile of dung right there tells you why is he digging next to it? Because he needs to put it in. Okay? So since that's the case, there's not even one shovel happens without you already having your kosher sign, right? In the form of a dung pile. Okay. Says the Gemara, Chano hazivlo mochiach alav. Okay, we're now gonna cut because we're right up to the next part of the Mishnah about fixing the damage of an irrigation canal, which is a lower amount of of effort than we said. So, Rabotai, I have to say, we are absolutely flying.
Yeah, we are.
We're absolutely flying. So we're doing very good, and also it's all new concepts. So, I mean, how many classes that we have? It was class number
4.
Class number 4. So we're doing roughly.
No, more.
No.
Class number 5?
No, I think this is the sixth.
Fifth.
Six? So you have if we have had 6 classes, that means that we're doing basically a whole amud a class. Because which means a whole flying. Amud is a whole one side. Like you see this?
Right, yep.
So like a daf is both sides in the Hebrew, amud is one side. If we've had 6 classes and we're just up to the bottom of Dalet Amud Bet, we're now up to Hey Amud Aleph. That's where we're starting tomorrow. Oh, sorry, on Thursday. I don't know, we'll have to, if everyone's going to be here. Right? So, Be'ezat Hashem, I will continue for the Baruch Le'olam. Amen.